Hi guys, and welcome to this video. I hope you're all doing well. Today's case, guys, is one of those cases where I was researching something else. I often say it on my channel, and I randomly came across this case. Actually, I wanted to present to you guys a completely different case which I've been researching for over 6 months now, but I haven't finished gathering information on it. And I randomly came across this case and I thought, wow, I need to bring this case to you guys because, again, this is one that has not had enough press coverage. It hasn't been brought to the forefront enough. And the victim of today's case, like, it's unbelievable what they were subjected to. Like, me, myself, even though I researched so many cases, there are some where I just think, oh my good God, like, I'm left speechless. And this is one of those cases. So let's go. We are going to be going to two countries today, guys, which are Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, and also Singapore, both Asian countries. I think I may have covered a case previously on my channel which actually featured Singapore. I think it's the case of little Aisha. But do forgive me, guys, because I have covered quite a few cases, but I think it's that one. But we're also going to be going to Myanmar to start off this case as well. So the victim of today's case, guys, is a female, and her name is Piang Ngaih Don. Piang was born on the 13th of June 1992 in a village in Myanmar, and it's said within the village that there was only about 1,500 people. Like, it was quite a small village, and it sounds like the background that she's come from is quite impoverished from what I can tell. Piang had 10 siblings, and it said that 5 of her siblings sadly passed away later in life, and her parents, both of them, actually passed away between 1996 and 1997. So Piang was only 4 years old when her parents both passed away, and they were farmers, and then it was just all the siblings. I don't think there was any other family, and they were trying to survive. They owned a little plot of land in Myanmar at the time, but they were essentially in quite a bit of poverty. Piang managed to stay in school till she was about 15 years old in Myanmar, and she then sort of decided to go into construction at the time to try and earn a bit of money. And then when she was around 18 or so, she actually fell pregnant, and then her partner sadly left her. Piang started to think, as she got older, that she needs to make more money to support her son. And she was like, I really would like to get a small plot of land and just build a small house for me and my son. At least she's got her own property, a bit of land. There's something for her and her child, you know. So this was her whole kind of thought. And she thought, how can I do this? How can I get enough money to do this? Because the situation in Myanmar, the way it was and the way income was, it was just not happening. So she's like, I need to think outside the box. I need to think of something else. And she must have had a neighbour or someone that she came across that was like, why don't you go to Singapore? Like, I've been to Singapore, I've been a maid there before, you can earn better money, you can save up that money, you can then get your plot of land back home in Myanmar, do your house, etc. So Piang, she starts thinking about all of this. The only problem at the time was Piang was 22, and at that time, back then, the law was such that to go to Singapore to be a maid, you actually had to be 23. It was part of the legal requirements in Singapore that you can't take on a maid unless she's at least 23 years old. So the thing was that at the time, Piang was almost 23. She was like 2 months away from turning 23 because she was born in June 1992. And at the time when she was due to go to Singapore, I think it was around 2015 or so, she was just 2 months away. So it must have been around April of 2015, something like this, right? But she didn't want to wait till she hit 23. She wanted to go ASAP so she could earn money. So she came across someone that she was able to kind of pay on the black market in the underground world, and they falsified her legal documentation so that it showed that actually she was 2 months older than she actually was, and that she literally just actually turned 23 on her passport. Now, I want you guys to remember this part, that she was almost 23 but wasn't quite, because already here, this is an infringement of the law when it comes to legal requirements and maids working abroad. Even though this was around 2015, it's a number of years ago, this was still an infringement, a very serious infringement of the law, and it becomes much more serious down the line because already of this particular one thing, that her legal documents were actually falsified, right? So anyway, Piang goes to Singapore now. So she's left her son at home. Her siblings, I presume, are looking after her son, but I can't confirm. So she's now gone to Singapore, and she goes through, I believe, an agency in Singapore. I think they're called MOM, which is like manpower something, okay? And this agency, they employ maids and they essentially source them out. They basically get maids work and source them out to different families in Singapore who essentially need a maid, need a home help. So Piang, she gets sent out to this family who have already had 4 previous maids in quite a short time frame, quite a short turnaround, and she's now the 5th maid going to this family. She becomes the maid for a family where the primary homeowner, household lady of the house, you could say, it's called Gayatri. There's her husband, who is called Kevin, I think, and then the mum, so Gayatri's mum, is called Prema. Gayatri at the time is around 35. Kevin, I think he's just a little bit older, he's around 37, and Prema, she's, I believe at the time, around 58 years old. There's also 2 little children, so there's Gayatri's 2 kids that she's got, which I believe at the time are 4 years old, and an infant who's maybe around 1 year old. There's actually 2 other tenants who also live in the house. I think it's an apartment, but there's quite a number of people. So we've got the 2 tenants, the lady of the house, her husband, the mum of Gayatri, and the 2 little kids and the tenants that are all living in this apartment. Now, as the maid of the house, Piang's role is obviously to like clean the house and cook, really, and that is essentially what her role is. It's not anything else. That's what she's employed to do. So she cleans, she cooks, whatever, right? Now, initially, as always, you know, when you go to an employer, things are okay at the beginning, and then things can start to change. And in the first 5-6 months, Gayatri, she is very vocal in her manner to communicate with Piang. She's very loud, she shouts a lot if she doesn't like what Piang's done, and she's got this kind of mode where when Piang wants to take a shower, like wash herself or use the toilet, Gayatri makes Piang leave the door open. So she's like watching Piang when she's going to the loo and when she's taking a shower, which already is very horrible in itself. Like, you can see that this is not a normal woman. Okay, now it is said that Gayatri, she's got OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, so she's proper into her cleanliness. But from what I've seen, I'll be honest guys, of this family, they don't look very hygienic to me, okay? But apparently Gayatri's got OCD, and she's also got postpartum depression after having her first child, who's now 4 years old. Now, Gayatri and Prema, they're just at home. So Gayatri and her mum, they're just in the house. I don't know where the tenants are. I presume they go to work. And Kevin, the husband, he's actually a police officer, guys. Now, again, I want you guys to keep this in mind, that the husband is a police officer, okay? This comes up again later in the case, you guys will see. But essentially at home, we've got Gayatri, her mum Prema, the 2 little kids, and most of the time it's just Piang. It's just them, all of them lot in the house, okay? The others, the tenants and the husband, they're generally out the house, I presume, okay? So Piang is doing the house chores, cooking, cleaning, whatever. That first 5-6 months, Gayatri's very vocal, as I said, very verbally abusive, always shouting, And Prema as well, the mother, she's 58. That one, she's also quite vocal. It's like Gayatri will say something, Prema gets involved and becomes very vocal. It's like, guys, whatever the daughter does, the mother then comes up behind and gets involved. And then it's the two of them essentially against Piang. Gayatri, she's always telling Piang that Piang is unhygienic. When, as I said, guys, from the looks of this family, they look really unhygienic, I'll be honest. But Gayatri keeps telling Piang that she's unhygienic. She makes her wear multiple face masks. It said actually later in the case that anyone who comes around the house, like Gayatri's sister-in-law, so Kevin's sister, she makes her actually wear a shower cap when she comes around the house because she's scared that the sister-in-law might drop her hair on the floor and things like that. Like, she is OCD, but it's beyond OCD, okay, guys? So anyway, so she makes Piang wear all these multiple face masks. Now, this is in 2015, guys. This is way before COVID and all of this. So, you know, people weren't really wearing face masks, really, then, generally. It wasn't normal, okay? Progressively over time, Gayatri starts to become very physically violent with Piang. Now, this sort of takes a form of kicking, punching, pulling Piang's hair, pulling Piang off the ground by her hair, shaking Piang about. And in the actual court case that's gone on, it said that Piang was thrown about like a rag doll, like literally like a rag doll. When it comes to food and what Piang is allowed to consume, that essentially consists of bread in water, which is primarily the main basis of food that Piang is allowed to consume, a little bit of rice, and then cold food from the fridge, which I don't know what that is, but from what I've read in this case, it doesn't sound like it's much food at all, if I'm honest with you. And when Piang starts to work for this family, it said that she's 39 kilos, she's about 1 meter 45, and she's 39 kilos. By the time we get to the end of this case, guys, I'll tell you before we even hit that point, by the time we get to the end of this case, Piang is 24 kilos. I'll come back to the 24 kilos, but just, yeah, bear that in mind. So she's barely fed anything, okay? She's physically abused, verbally abused. And the problem is that Gayatri is doing all of this, the daughter, but the mother comes up behind and then doubles up on the abuse. So if the daughter's verbally abusing Piang, the mother does it. If Gayatri is physically abusing Piang, then the mother comes up behind and doubles up on that physical abuse against Piang. And then it's still the situation where Piang is trying to take a shower, trying to use a toilet. They're watching her. Like, it's all this abnormal, like, crazy abusive behaviour. Interestingly, there is CCTV in this house. I think, again, I've done another case where there was CCTV in the house. This CCTV was installed by the husband, Kevin. And it said that Kevin installed the CCTV to keep an eye on his kids and to check they're okay, and to keep an eye on the maid. But essentially, the only thing going on in this house is physical violence against the maid. Like, there's nothing else that really needs monitoring with CCTV. And it's at the point where there's a point, it said once, but I would imagine, I'll be honest, guys, it's probably more, where Gayatri is actually physically beating Piang on the floor and her 1-year-old son is next to them while Gayatri is doing this to Piang, which is unbelievable. It's like you haven't even taken into consideration that your young 1-year-old son is next to you and you're still doing this to the maid. You don't even care that your child is witnessing this level of extreme violence, which is just completely shocking. And this physical violence, sorry guys, I'll backtrack a little bit here, started around July 2015. So Piang actually joined the family in around May of 2015, and the physical violence started around July, September kind of time, October. I'd say verbal abuse between May 2015 to October 2015, and then from October 2015, this is when all this physical violence was going on since October 2015, and it's kind of been building up. Now, you guys are probably thinking, right, Kevin, he's at work in his police officer job and all of this, and it's interesting that there's a police officer that's part of this family, there's CCTV there, and Kevin, who is supposed to help law-abiding citizens who need help, has got all this abuse going on in this house, right? Which is quite interesting. And it's also interesting that Kevin takes out a baseball bat and beats Piang with it as a police officer, right? Amazing police job, Kevin. So yeah, the physical violence, verbal abuse is off the Richter scale. You've got Kevin, Gayatri and Prema all involved in this. The tenants are not involved in it. I presume they're out of the house most of the time, and this is why they're not witnessing this, and the kids are so small. So this is continuous, and this continues up until around July of 2016. Now you guys are going to think, okay, what changed in July 2016? Now, over that period of time, from October 2015 to July 2016, Piang, just for the record, I forgot to mention, sorry guys, I always have things that come back to me. Piang is not allowed to have a mobile phone because Gayatri does not want Piang to have a mobile phone. I don't know why, but probably because she doesn't want her to be able to contact anyone for help. So Piang is not supposed to have a mobile phone. Somehow Piang manages to make 5 calls between October 2015 to July 2016 to her family in Myanmar. The first 4 calls that she makes is like, yeah, everything's going okay in Singapore, She didn't want to alert her family. And in that time, actually, Piang also has 2 medical checks at 6 months and 10 months into her service for this family. And in those medical checks, it's seen by the doctors that she's got scars, that she's got all this bruising. And her employer, Gayatri, is just like, oh yeah, the maid, she's very clumsy. Now, I don't know what doctors that do medical checks can think that this level of physical violence, when you see this level of bruising and scars on someone, is because they're clumsy as a maid in a household, right? I know myself, guys, sorry to laugh, I know myself that if this was the UK and there's a medical check on a maid and she's got that much bruising on her, the doctors are just going to alert the police immediately. They're not even going to call the employer, they'll just call the police. It's interesting, actually, there's so many cases in Asia where maids are involved that the police are never called. The police are never called. There's medical checks, there's neighbours that have seen things, but the police are never called. I can't fathom this. But anyway, so she's had 2 medical checks at 6 months and 10 months. By the time we've hit 10 months, the physical abuse has started. So she's got bruising, she's got scars. And Gayatri's just like, oh yeah, she's super clumsy. No. And the doctors just leave it. And then she's made 4 calls to her family, as I said, in Myanmar, and told them, you know, everything's going okay, I think because she doesn't want to worry her family at all, right? But then she makes a 5th call to her family in Myanmar in July of 2016, around the 12th of July, I believe it is, 2016, saying that I don't feel well, I want to come home. She doesn't start explaining what's going on, but she starts saying, yeah, I don't feel well, I really want to come home, I don't want to be here anymore. And it's very evident that something's wrong on that call, and that is the last call that she actually makes to her family in Myanmar on the 12th of July 2016. From that point of the 12th of July 2016, she's subjected to about 35 days or so of intense physical violence by this family. You may have heard a little bit of extra noise there. That was one of my rescue guinea pigs, baby Paul. So I just thought I'll show you baby Paul, guys. I know it's a little bit of a tangent in this video, but anyway, this is baby Paul, the one who was just making all the weaking and squeaking in the middle of this case. So, getting back to this case, guys, Piang has called her family, and she's now, after this call, been subjected to 35 days of continuous physical abuse from this family. In this time, I believe it's the same level of physical violence as Piang has gone through before, but it's just continuous. It's non-stop. It's not even where there's a break. It's just non-stop for 35 days straight, literally. One of the nights, Gayatri decides to tie Piang's wrist to a window grill. Especially abroad, I find more in like hotter countries, there will be sometimes grills on windows, so you can open the window but have a grill, so it's still safe if it could be a country that's a bit more unsafe sometimes as well. And essentially, Gayatri has tied Piang's wrist to the grill of the window, and so Piang can't detach herself, can't go to the loo, nothing. And it's near the floor, so Piang is able to basically lie down on the floor, but her wrist is essentially tied or chained to this window grill. And Gayatri and Prema are pouring water on Piang, and all her clothes are soaked, so she's like cold and wet, and she's been physically assaulted, and they just leave her like that essentially. Now this is late at night. The next morning, Kevin, he's been there. He's got up for work, left the house at 7:30 a.m. and then Prema and Gayatri have got up and seen that Piang, she hasn't moved. Like, she's just in the same position she was the night before. She hasn't even moved at all. And they start shaking her, and she's not reactive at all. There's nothing. There's no response. There's nothing. And that's when they start to think, is she dead or not? So what they do about 9:30, imagine this is 7:30. At 9:30, they call like a doctor's surgery. They get a doctor to come. The doctor comes at 9:45 and pronounces Piang dead, okay? She calls an ambulance out because an ambulance needs to come out and certify the death and also collect Piang. Ambulance comes about 10:50 in the morning to collect Piang and certifies that she is pronounced dead. So in between when the doctor and the ambulance have been, so prior to the doctor coming out, sorry guys, I forgot to mention, Gayatri and Prema, they put dry clothes on Piang and removed her wet clothes, so it doesn't look like she's been in a really bad physical state, when it's very visible that she's in a very bad physical state. But anyway, so the doctor and the ambulance, they don't see all these wet clothes and everything. So the ambulance takes Piang's body away, and it's, you know, set for autopsy and everything else. And it said that she was choked multiple times and received blunt force trauma to her neck and was deprived of oxygen to her brain, and that all her organs were failing. She had, I think, I can't quite remember guys because it's so high, but I think it's 37 scars and 47 external injuries, something like this. It's quite high. And this is the point where Piang was weighing 24 kilos and her BMI was 11.26. A normal minimal BMI for an adult woman is 18, and Piang's BMI was 11. Just to give you an example of sizing, guys, I don't mind saying it, it's not to talk about weight or anything, but I'm about 70 kilos and I'm 1 meter 62, and Piang was 24 kilos. One of the doctors has said that it was like her skin was wrapping round her bones. Another doctor, because there were two doctors that did the autopsy, one that found her, the other one did the autopsy. The one who did the autopsy, Dr. Paul, he was called actually, he said that the only cases where you see patients like this are cancer patients or patients with tuberculosis. When I read this, the BMI of 11.26, 24 kilos, and this is where you see patients with cancer or tuberculosis that would normally potentially look like this. I had one of my grandmothers who's passed, she actually had tuberculosis when I was 21 years old, 21, 22. So I know how that looks. And I just thought, good God, this poor woman, she was 24 at the time of death. And the way that she was treated, like when you see those figures and you read just this, you can see how extreme the level of abuse was towards her. Now, obviously, Gayatri, Prema and Kevin, they were all arrested. It said that the tenants had no involvement. They didn't hear anything and they weren't involved. So as I said, guys, I presume they were professionals. They were out at work when this was going on, and then they were in their rooms. They didn't witness this. Neighbours didn't witness it or anything. Now, with Gayatri, remember I told you guys that she had OCD and she had postpartum depression. Gayatri herself knew that she had OCD, and she also knew that she had postpartum depression. Now, when Piang went to work with the family, Gayatri's oldest child, her daughter, was already 4. So Gayatri had already had postpartum depression for 4 years. It's not like it's something that suddenly developed and Gayatri wasn't aware of it, etc. Gayatri knew that she had this for 4 years, and she made the choice not to seek treatment for postpartum depression. Postpartum depression, guys, is something that is extremely serious. It's not something to take lightly, and I fully understand that. Postpartum depression can lead to states of psychosis and can lead to very violent states if it's not dealt with properly, and that is something I understand. However, the fact that Gayatri was aware that she had this for 4 years, and also Gayatri's mother knew that her daughter had this, and they chose not to seek treatment for it, is, if you choose not to seek treatment for a condition, guys, for me, that's on you. Her mother as well, who did not have any mental health condition, instead of pointing her daughter in the right direction and seeking medical treatment for the postpartum depression and the OCD, she encouraged her daughter's poor behaviour and assisted in the poor behaviour as well, which is unbelievable. I know I haven't even reached the end of this case, guys, but I'll tell you already, personally, in this particular case, I don't feel any empathy, sympathy or anything like that towards Gayatri for what she's done, because I don't. I just don't at all feel any empathy or anything for her, okay? So for the first trial, it started with Gayatri's trial. So they brought up, obviously, the situation of postpartum depression, of OCD. She had multiple solicitors. Gayatri's lawyers didn't want this to be a murder charge. And I forgot to mention, guys, in Singapore, the death penalty actually still exists. Caning actually exists. If it's a male perpetrator, then they can be caned as well, and there can be fines. I didn't actually know the death sentence existed in Singapore, actually, but it does. So Gayatri's lawyers wanted to avoid a first-degree murder charge to avoid the death sentence, right? And they managed to get it down to a second-degree homicide charge, so that they could at least avoid the death penalty, right? However, it was still a second-degree homicide. And there were actually 87 charges against Gayatri, guys. 87. Some of the figures in this case, guys, there's a lot of numbers in this case, and every time I read the different numbers in this case, I was just gobsmacked, I'll be honest with you. So there were 87 charges against Gayatri. Obviously, they took into consideration the postpartum depression, the OCD, etc. But as I said earlier, Gayatri was aware of her conditions, and she had them for years, and she did nothing to seek help or went to a doctor or nothing, right? So the case went on for a number of years, I think until around 2020, something like this, 2019. And her lawyers were pleading for leniency and lesser charges, and because she's got the kids, even though she was beating Piang next to her kids. But anyway, and in the end, she got sentenced to 30 years in prison, which I feel like is actually not enough. But anyway, then we get to Prema's court case, the mother, right? Now, the mother had 47 charges against her. So a lot of them were similar to the ones that Gayatri had against her, which involved the physical violence, the abuse. But a difference was that Prema had tried to conceal that CCTV. Remember I told you guys there was CCTV in the apartment that Kevin had installed. And that CCTV, guys, recorded those 35 days of physical abuse against Piang. It was very serious evidence that was on that CCTV footage, right? And Prema tried to conceal and get rid of that CCTV footage, right? Which is obviously primary evidence in this case, okay? That was a very serious charge. So the other 46 charges of abuse and whatever, she pleaded guilty to them. But the one for disposing of evidence, she didn't want to plead guilty to it. She didn't want to admit that she tried to dispose of that CCTV evidence. Anyway, in the end, she admitted that she had tried to conceal the evidence and get Kevin, her son-in-law, to dispose of the CCTV evidence and all of this, blah, blah, blah. And then she had to change lawyers multiple times. Her first lawyer had bipolar disorder, so she had to change lawyers. The case kept dragging as well. And then it was around 2020 to 2023 that she finally got sentenced, and she got 17 years in prison, which is not enough for the fact that she was part of the homicide. I'm going to say murder. But anyway. And then we get to Kevin, who was a police officer. Now, as I said, guys, he had 5 charges against him, and he admitted 4 of the charges, and one of those included him beating Piang with a baseball bat. And when he was beating Piang with a baseball bat, this was actually on that CCTV footage that Prema had tried to dispose of. And she actually abetted Kevin, so she encouraged Kevin to dispose of all the CCTV footage. This police officer twat man, right? But Kevin, I don't think he'd actually disposed of it. I think Kevin tried to conceal the CCTV footage, then he, admitted to the police that he had it or something like this. Kevin started saying that he'd never beaten Piang before and blah, blah, blah and all of this. And then on the video evidence, the CCTV, there was a video of him beating Piang. Like, these people are such liars, guys. Like, look, the video evidence is there of you doing this, and you are still not pleading guilty to it. You're making your case even worse than it is. I want to say you're wasting the police's time. I mean, Kevin is a policeman. He's anyway. So Kevin, I'm trying to think of what sentence he got. Oh no, sorry guys. Let me backtrack here. My brain's gonna miss that. Kevin has not had his sentence yet. Kevin's sentence is due in July 2025. So Kevin still hasn't been sentenced. And this case started in July 2016, 9 years ago. And Kevin still hasn't had his sentence yet, right? He did have to be tried twice. So Kevin had to have a kind of trial with the police kind of court, however that works, and got obviously struck off. Just to note, guys, Piang died in July 2016 and Kevin was still on the police force till August 2016. I don't know how that's possible. They were still on the police force for another month. He had to kind of go through a trial with the police force, and then he's still awaiting his sentencing, which is due in July this year of 2025. So we still don't know the outcome for Kevin yet. In between 2020 and 2025, Kevin and Gayatri got divorced as well. So they also, both of them got divorced. I don't know what's happened to the 2 little kids. Bless their little cotton socks. Those poor children as well. And yeah, this is where we are with this case. So we still don't know the sentencing for Kevin. So we don't have the full outcome for this case. But obviously we know the sentencing for Gayatri and for Prema, which is not strong enough, right? As I said, guys, when I was researching this case, initially when I started reading about the story, and I'm like, Piang, okay, made in Singapore, I knew it's going to be a bad case. I was like, okay, it's a maid that's left Myanmar to go to Singapore. Right, there's something bad that's happened. Okay. And then I start reading about Piang's background. She's from a village. I start reading, okay, about the situation and the abuse and everything. But when I started seeing all these figures, guys, for some reason, like 11.26 BMI, and then 47 charges, 87 charges, and all of this, I was just like, I've never seen figures like this. Like the number of figures and statistics that came up for this case, and even what the doctors were saying, that they just never seen, like the doctor who had to go to the house when Gayatri and Prema had called the GP surgery, and this doctor that went out, she was a female doctor, and saw Piang on the floor dead at 9:45 in the morning. and Piang was 24 kilos, completely emaciated, guys. It was unbelievable. The other doctor, Dr. Paul, who did the autopsy, I believe, he literally said there was no fat left on Piang. Like, it's like where your body has started to absorb even your protein, and if you haven't got any protein, it's absorbing water or God knows what. There's no fat, there's nothing left on you, basically, literally. It said as well that Piang's legs were swollen at one point, and Piang's legs were swollen because apparently if there's no fat left on the body and the body can't absorb protein, absorb muscle tissue, after that there's nothing left, and all this fluid kind of builds up in the body because of issues with the liver and the organs, and then that fluid goes into the legs. It's like a lymphedema or something, and the legs become really swollen, so you're super skinny, you've got no fat on you, but your legs are completely swollen. And that's when Gayatri Prema took Piang to hospital, and the doctors didn't even diagnose anything, they didn't even do anything. Like, guys, the doctors in this case, apart from the one who did the autopsy and the one who found Piang, all these others that did medical assessments, I'm like, are you actually qualified to be doctors? Like, are you clinically trained? Are you actually... Someone who's not even clinically trained can see if someone is malnourished and if they've undergone physical violence. I'm sorry, you don't need to be a doctor to see that. And if you are a doctor, you have a legal and professional obligation to alert police, right? The amount of people that failed Piang in this case, and now her little boy is left without a mother, it's unbelievable. It's beyond me, guys. I've seen cases before, guys, I wanted to say, of postpartum depression. Like, I've seen true crime, I've seen different documentaries about postpartum and things like this. And that's why I mentioned in this case that it's a very serious condition. But I still do not have any empathy for Gayatri for what she's done, because she was conscious of what she's doing. She didn't want to seek help for her condition. Her mother didn't. Her mother's got no mental health condition, and she encouraged all this violence. Like, the mother could have interjected and stopped it. Kevin, I don't know what his responsibility is to society as a bloody police officer. He's got that one. He's effed up in the head as well. This case just makes me so angry, guys. It actually makes me so angry. This woman, she was in poverty. She lost her parents. She's at 18 on her own with a child. The things that she already went through before she even got to Singapore, that she had to endure, and then to go through all this shit with this idiotic... I don't even want to swear, guys. This disgusting, vile family. I honestly hope... The only hope for me, guys, because I am religious, I never bring religion into my videos, but I really just hope these 3 members of this family, I actually hope that they just burn in hell. That is my hope for the perpetrators of today's case. I will leave my thoughts there, guys, because I'm getting a bit angry, as you guys could probably tell. Feel free, as always, guys, to comment down below. Let me know if you've heard of this case or not as well. If you've seen any new information or updates on Kevin as well and his sentencing. If you know about this case, of course. You can always leave me suggestions for new cases, international cases, for true crime cases, or also cults. I haven't covered a cult in a long time, and I am researching cult cases, guys. I'm trying to bring a more lesser known cult to you guys as well. And I will leave today's case, guys, here.